evil.
Hello there, welcome to the channel and the beginning of my NetSpid marathon of games with Resident Evil from GOG. How this marathon will work is that I'll play through the original game first, or at least the GOG version, then its remake, making note of any differences between the two and if there were any additions leading up to the fourth game. First up is the Resident Evil 1 from GOG. A solid port, I must say, and is my first time playing through the original. I played the remake that was available on Steam first, and before that, I had mainly heard about the series when Resident Evil 4 was being released, and my first Resident Evil was 5. I didn't get into it, and I got fully invested in the series when I played 7. I was actually surprised at how well the first one held up so many years later. So let's tank our way through the Arklay mansion, avoid becoming a jail sandwich with some campy dialogue, and survive in this horror-defining game. Let's see just how good is the masterpiece, Resident Evil.
Trapped in the twisting halls of a horrifying mansion, an army of gruesome creatures thirst for your blood. With a racing heart, you open each door. Will it lead you to safety, or just draw you closer to Resident Evil? From Capcom, rent it today.
The original Resident Evil first released in Japan, followed by North America and PAL regions on the PS1, with a director's cut that followed with, I believe, new music due to legal issues with Hoser, and had a DualShock version that followed. There was also a release for Windows, which the GOG version is based on, with a Sega Saturn version, and even a DS port that followed in 2006, celebrating the 10-year anniversary. Originally, Resident Evil was conceived as a remake for a game from the NES called Sweet Home from producer Totoro Fujiwara, who was notable for some of the original Mega Man and Mega Man X games, with Shinji Mikami as the director. The game went through many redesigns that led to the version released with even a first-person perspective before the third person was implemented in previous builds. Imagine a Resident Evil game in first person. It sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? Wait a minute. Later builds also removed the auto-aim and fourth dimensional boxes, being able to put an item in a box and it shows up in another box.
Hello!
And also reduced ink ribbons. Just imagining less ink ribbons makes me shudder since there's not that many to find already. These were obviously changed. Apparently, the dev team had numerous ideas that involved landmine traps and boarding up windows, for example, that were either never implemented or had console limitations for the PS1. Despite so many changes when Resident Evil or Biohazard released, it released to critical praise that by December of 1997, it had sold 4 million copies and made about $200 million worldwide, and being one of the best survival horror games that would influence many others down the line. So, it was a modest success.
Right.
What also made the game stand out is that it had cutscenes and voice dialogue, for better or worse.
It's me, Chris.
Is that you, Rebecca?
Obviously.
Chris! Don't die!
No shit.
Jill, here's my radio. You should keep it. I'm...
Woo! You know you did.
Wesker!
Jill, so you're safe.
That's what I was going to say.
Listen here, you little sh...
I was looking for you.
Barry.
Which was pretty neat. So how is this genre-defining game in the most important aspect, the gameplay?
Biohazard Dual Shock Bacio.
Capcom.
When beginning a new game of Resident Evil, players can pick between playing Chris Redfield or Jill Valentine. The controls between the two are roughly the same, with 10 controls to move around the mansion and prepare to aim weapons using one button to aim and then shoot with another one. It takes a bit to get used to the controls, with turning and going the same direction for no matter what you're doing being a little bit weird. Also, there's no way to move diagonally, so it's gonna be weird for a bit. There's also a sprint button to make it easier to get between areas and avoid the numerous enemies. And the fixed camera angles throughout the game make you think twice before just sprinting everywhere, and did make me jump whenever I wasn't paying attention to zombie placements, which thankfully most enemies are fixed in places. There's also these neat door opening transitions for just about every door and stairwell or even ladder in the game. They can be skipped if you don't want to see them. There are also weapons that can be found from the standard starting handgun, a shotgun, a magnum type weapon, and you can even find a flamethrower for a little bit. These are usable with various strengths and weaknesses. The handgun has more ammo with the least amount of damage, the shotgun can hit multiple enemies and does a lot of damage, and if you let a zombie come close, it's possible to one-shot them by blowing off their head, effectively removing them from the area permanently. Then there is the Magnum, which is one of the most powerful weapons in the game, one-shotting nearly all enemies, but it has the least amount of ammo available. Then, when playing as Jill, she can find a grenade launcher type weapon that can one-shot most enemies as well, and has a lot of ammo types, with explosive ammo, fire ammo, acid ammo. There's also a combat knife, nothing to say about it. The name of the game, though, with the weapons, is Ammo Management. Ammo management, ammo management. If you don't have an understanding of ammo or item management with the inventory, it can make Resident Evil a very hard time, especially since Chris has 6 slots for inventory and Jill has 8. But once that's mastered, the game does get a bit easier until the latter half with new enemies. Around the halfway point, there's been zombies, zombie dogs, giant snakes, a mutant plant, and even giant friggin' spiders. Pretty simple to take out. Then there's the hunters. These fuckers take shit tons of ammo to take down, damage you like crazy, and can even one-shot Chris and Jill if their health is just barely half down, with almost no indication of them attacking other than a screech to tear their heads off. They aren't tough, they're more annoying as fuck. Every time I got really far in a recording session, these moldy bread looking butts would tear off my head, and it'd take me a while to get back to where I was. They are very annoying. I cannot stress that enough. There's also puzzles in the game that aren't too difficult to figure out, and even has a boss fight that has a puzzle you need to do to defeat it, making every puzzle a little more unique than the last one, and really tests your sense of directions with a lot of them too. I'll admit, I got lost a lot in the game, running around the mansion for a while before I remembered to look at the maps that you can find around the mansion. Also, finding the mansion keys further tests item management, since until all the doors with the key are opened, they can't be discarded, or some items, like the lighter, which is usable to get a couple items, becomes useless very quickly. What aren't useless are the various herbs that can be found in 3 colors. Blue cures poison, red enhances other herbs, and green herbs.
Now let's get real high.
They restore health, and if combined with, say, a red herb, will completely restore health. There's also first aid sprays that can restore health too, but they're very limited in supply. Thankfully, the mansion has a decent amount of these herbs if you don't play like an idiot, which I did, a lot, at least at first. To further help with inventory management are the safe rooms. These are the safest areas in the game that let Chris and Jill save the game and offload or retrieve items from the item bots. There's a few of these in the game, and can get difficult to get to when enemies get tougher. This is also a good chance to mention the music of Resident Evil. It's pretty good, giving just the right amount of ambiance for each section in the mansion, with the save room theme being pretty memorable to go with all the different aesthetics that show up throughout the mansion. No two areas are really the same. And the music is better than whatever happened in later versions of the Resident Evil OST that changed. Now, why pick Chris or Jill if their gameplay is similar? For Chris, he's roughly the normal mode of the game, with limited space, more puzzles to figure out, less assistance to make the game easier, with the main thing with Chris being he can take more damage than Jill, I think. This isn't Chris Boulder Punch Redfield yet, but I think he takes more damage. Chris also has to use ink ribbons to save the game, which are very limited. What I usually did was grab a bunch of them, go to a safe room, and put them in the item bots for future saves. There are also times when the game shifts to Rebecca Chambers to help Chris in a pinch, and with the main ending of his scenario, and not much else. Jill, on the other hand, is considered the easy mode, having more item space, gets access to some weapons sooner, and even gets a lockpick that she carries somewhere on her. I'll leave that to your imagination. And instead of Rebecca, it's Barry Burton who gives the lockpick, since Jill is...
Jill, here's a lockpick. It might be handy if you, the master of unlocking, take it with you.
Thanks. Maybe I'll need it.
And can rescue her from a trap, almost making her a...
What's going on?
Jill? Is that you, Jill? What happened?
Barry, help me please. The door won't open. Quick!
Stay away from the door, Jill. I'm going to kick this door down. Hurry! This way!
Oh, Barry!
That was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich.
You're right.
Barry makes Jill's scenario that was already easy even more of a breeze with a boss that he can take out. He gives shortcuts to some areas, and also has more dialogue with Jill that can even happen differently at some times. Resident Evil does have some bits that make it pretty fun to replay. Also, Jill's scenario seems to take that campy dialogue that was in Chris's up a notch, making it borderline hilarious with some of the interactions. It's also possible to get an alternate ending with Jill by not taking a rope from Barry, leading to a bad ending, which I have to say is pretty neat and easily missed. Also, is it just me, or does Jill look like she's got a mustache for her shadow lines on her face? Mustache. So, is there a reward for finishing the game? Yes. Chris and Jill will get a key for a closet that gives bonus costumes if they get their true ending. And I think that's it for the overall gameplay. So that leaves the story to look over.
アメリカ中西部の町ラクーンシティ。作戦行動中の特殊な警察部隊スターズのメンバーはここである奇怪な体験をすることになる。銃弾が効かない獣の群れに襲われ逃げ込んだ巨大な館だが、その館がさらなる恐怖の入り口であることを彼らはまだ知らなかった。2人のキャラクターから主人公を選び、リアルタイムに流れる時間の中、仲間と助け合い、血に飢えた怪物たちが徘徊する館に隠された数々の謎を解いていく。そして脱出経路を見つけ出し生き延びることが目的である。また選んだキャラクターによってストーリーも変化する。限られた武器を手にここから生きて出られるのか。死より恐ろしい現実がここに。プレイステーション用ソフトサバイバルホラーバイオハザード。
Since this is the story, I'm going to wait a bit for anyone wanting to skip the story for spoilers. Okay, the story, since it follows Chris and Jill, is slightly different from whomever is in the driver's seat. For this, I'll have Chris primarily the focus. The story of Resident Evil follows a STARS team from the local city, Raccoon City, which has been plagued by mysterious attacks that were tracked down to the Raccoon City forest after a previous STARS team had gone missing. While searching the forest, they find remains of a copter and bodies of the team, when they're attacked by these dog-like monsters, and their copter leaves them.
No! Don't go! Wow. What an asshole.
With the team getting pushed into a nearby mansion with Barry going missing and Chris, Jill, and Wester having to search the mansion. Can I just say, this live action intro is actually pretty good? They begin investigating the mansion to find a way out since the front door is blocked, finding various zombies while searching for any survivors and finding information on the residents who ended up succumbing to an infection, with Jill and Wester disappearing to parts unknown. Chris ends up finding Rebecca Chambers from the Bravo Stars team, who helps Chris in his investigation and cures his poisoning from the giant snake named the Yaw. Chris ends up going to a nearby guardhouse that houses an experimental plant called Plant 42 and an underground lab. After defeating 42, Chris finds Wester, who says that Jill has disappeared. After returning to the mansion to look again, it becomes populated by the Hunter bioweapons, and the Yawn returning, and Chris defeating it, leading him to an underground area of many tunnels that lead to the Arklay lab hidden in a fountain. While in there, Chris finds these different types of regenerating zombies and finds Jill locked up in a cell, as well as various documents of the bioweapons that had been seen up to this point, with a familiar face part of the lab crew. After reconnecting with Rebecca, Chris finds Wester in the lab, who turns out to be behind all of what has happened with the Stars team while in the mansion. After knocking Rebecca out with a gunshot, he takes Chris to the primary subject of the Arklay mansion, the Tyrant, which was used to derive the T-virus, which had devastated the mansion's staff. And Wester, thinking he can control the Tyrant, releases it, and it stabs him, leaving Chris having to fight it. With Rebecca's help, a self-destruct sequence is activated, Jill is released, and the trio make way to the helipad with their copter returning in time, thanks to Rebecca's radio and some flares. The Tyrant breaks through the ground to attack Chris, and he has to use a rocket launcher to fully destroy it. After that, it shows the trio flying away with the Arklay mansion blowing up in the background and Chris sighing in relief. But the neighbors, on the other hand...
Oh, good. You made it out too. Well, thanks for destroying my fucking house! You fucks.
Then there's Jill, whose story follows similar beats to Chris's, with Barry in place of Rebecca in areas, and Rebecca not appearing at all. Jill will find other Stars members in the mansion to help, and have more mystery when looking into a traitor working for Umbrella, revealed to be obviously Wester at the end. With a similar ending just by having Barry instead of Rebecca in the copter. And that's pretty much it for Resident Evil's story.
Chris Redfield, Jill Valentine, Barry Burton, Rebecca Chambers, Albert Wesker, Resident Evil.
I have to say, Resident Evil is a fantastic game that still holds up all these years later. Even though I used the GOG version, I had a wonderful time playing with it. From what I understand, the GOG and PS1 versions are different. I noticed it with one of the puzzles, having to make the V-jolt with chemicals, for example. And at least when the multi-hunter futs weren't involved, the game was fun. The story is straightforward, with it being confusing to fully integrate the two perspectives since both are canon, apparently. That makes it confusing for a number of reasons. Other than that, the gameplay holds up, the puzzles don't overstay their welcome, the dialogue is campy fun, and the music makes this overall package a stellar work of video game. I can definitely understand after playing the original why Resident Evil got so popular, and have an inkling of why when they changed the formula for a while, why it didn't do so well. Also personally, I liked Jill's scenario more than Chris's because it had more of a narrative to it. Also having more pockets was really nice. Playing Chris isn't terrible, but the less inventory made a lot of backtracking happen. I definitely suggest the GOG port of this game. It's very well done. Although playing it on a controller with the D-pad for an Xbox controller is a little weird. If GOG doesn't sound like an option, there's always emulating, because if you like Duts, there's a station for them. Hint hint, nudge nudge. Next time we'll revisit the Arklay mansion in the Resident Evil remake remaster for Steam. Before leaving, please leave a like, make a comment, or even subscribe. It lets me know if these antics of mine are at least entertaining. Will Chris ever learn how to play piano? Does Wesker make fries with that hairdo? Will the campy nature continue for later games? Let me know if I missed anything, and tune in next time. Bye-bye!
Resident Evil, more terrifying than ever, comes to Nintendo GameCube. Spine-chilling action. Devastating weapons. Unspeakable evil. Live the nightmare. Resident Evil, exclusively from Capcom. Rated M for mature, only on Nintendo GameCube.
That's fucking metal as fuck, dude!